Hey everyone, I have a very special guest with me today, our weekly contributor, Anna Kelly. How you doing, Anna?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you this morning?
Oh, I am doing very, very, very good. I'm excited for this topic because, with real estate investing and frankly on this channel, we talk about buying or researching or all of that stuff. I don't think we've done an episode ever about selling. So
Yeah,
let's talk about when to think about selling. When do you consider it? What are we both doing now? What have we done in the past as far as selling or exchanging? Um, what do you think?
I think that's great. And we both just briefly talked before we started that we both are actually selling right now. So even though we are also looking to buy,
Hmm.
there's always a time in everyone's portfolio where you have to look at your portfolio and say, given that we are in the top of the market cycle, how long we'll be at the top, we don't know. But
Right.
signs, as we've talked about before, are that we might be heading back toward a recession or a down cycle because of being in hypersupply. And so you have to look at your portfolio and say, knowing where we are in the market today, would
Yep.
I make a better decision to sell a couple of my properties that I've got a lot of equity in so that I can then become liquid to purchase something else when we do have a downturn? Or because maybe those properties no longer are the right fit for your portfolio for one reason or another,
Hmm.
where they're located or the types of repairs that you might have to start putting into the building if they're starting to age,
Yeah.
and whether it's worth it to hold that property, not be able to potentially sell it for as much later, not really have as much of a market for it without some of those capital improvements, or go ahead and keep them for the long term like you planned for when you originally bought them. So I think it's always good at least once a year to kind of evaluate your portfolio and to say, let me keep the best performers. Let me sell the ones that maybe aren't performing the way that I want to, or that I can get some big chunks of cash for, and then make a decision on a property by property basis as to what to do. And quite frankly, this is the first time I'm really selling properties, other than one uh, 3 unit in a rough area that I had a 1 year experiment on. We talked about before. Sold that, but other than that, I pretty much try to buy and hold and really hold them for the long term.
I think again, I love this topic idea. We have been, we've been doing this roughly 20 years now, and we had one selling cycle. And I use the word selling; it was exchanging, right? We were exchanging out of one set of assets into another back in, I want to say, '07. It kind of probably started in '06 and maybe finished in early '08. But yeah, we sold all 8 of our houses, right? Single family homes that we had worked so long to buy, right? One rental at a time, one a year, one a year. Then we bought 2, and I thought I was going to hold those forever. I mean,
Mhm.
I'd never even heard of a real estate investor selling. I had no idea. But I still remember going, I can't buy the ninth one. I can't. And the numbers were crazy, right? That first house we bought for 107, rented for 1100. It was suddenly, unbeknownst to me, worth over 260 grand, but still rented for 1100.
Wow.
And that's what we,
Cha-ching, time to sell.
yeah, I was like, and again, I still am sitting, I can still put myself at the kitchen table going, Olivia, we can't buy the ninth house because they don't cash flow. I don't know what's going on. It doesn't work. And then a RIA meeting, a guy brought up small apartment buildings, right, under 20 units. And then we just started doing the math, and it was like, we found it. So we absolutely sold. And did we know it was the top of the market? Did we know that 260K house would ultimately be resold at 75? No, we had no idea. None.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's what it traded for 2 years later after the buyer lost it. It's 75
And
grand.
Michael, that's exactly why it's so important to really understand the economy and market cycles. I did not understand that in '07 when I really was getting started in buying rentals and overpaying for some things. But that just goes to show you, an up cycle and a down cycle. I mean, that's $200,000
Yeah.
swing in value. And
Yeah. And
especially being in areas like California, it's a real risk that if we have another crash, or like we did in '08, '09,
yeah.
you really could lose that value that's there on paper. So it's a good reason to think about, know your cycle, and if we are at the top, is this a good time to sell assets that you think might come down in value when there's a change in the
Yeah.
cycle?
And again, I want to be very clear. I don't want to sit here and lie to anyone. I had no idea that 260 house would eventually retrade at 75. All
Wow.
I knew is I couldn't make the numbers work. I am so conservative. I
Hmm.
couldn't be fooled into Excel spreadsheets, frankly, lying to me.
Yeah.
And so let's answer this question. If I would have just held those 8 houses and never bought a ninth, would I have lost any of them? No, because they were all bought before. They all cash flowed $100 to $300 depending. So we would have been able to survive the downturn. We probably would have had some vacancies, but again, rents went up a little bit, so we probably would have been okay. But I wouldn't be retired today. There's
Right.
there's
Right.
just there's none. So yeah, we
And that's one of those questions is what's the opportunity cost of
exactly.
keeping this property versus what I might be able to do with that property to create greater opportunity. So I think that's the main question on an annual basis, property by property. Is this property performing the numbers the way that I thought it would when I bought it?
Hmm.
Is there anything I can do to fix that and change that? And even if I can, is it worth it to keep it if I can go find something else that's going to create me, 5 times the amount of income by taking that equity? And
Yeah.
of course, you can talk about, whether it makes sense to refi it if you really want to keep
Yeah.
it rather than, selling while banks are willing to refi at low rates.
Hmm.
But for me, on one that I recently decided to sell, I
Hmm.
really didn't have another property identified, but I had so much equity in this building for what I know I could sell it for today that I could go and trade my 4 unit building in for probably 10 to 12 more units.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of, yes, I could lock in. Yes, I could refi and get some of that out. But then also that building was starting to age. And so eventually, in the next couple of years, I'm gonna, for example, let's say I would make um, $10,000 net in a year and a half to 2 years on that thing.
Hmm.
If I'm going to have to put a roof on it in the next couple of years, and if there's a down cycle and the value goes down a little bit,
Yeah.
that may not happen. I may spend all of it on the roof. And
Yeah.
even though I planned a certain amount of capex per month to go toward long-term repairs, if I can make, $150,000 on that thing today, it's like 10 years worth of my profit that I'd have to wait 10 years to make. So why not make it all now
Hmm.
and then find another property to go into, whether or not I can 1031 or have to pay the capital gain by the time I identify that property.
Yeah. And that's the big twist from my experience in '08. Let's just call it '08 to today. Is in '08, the frenzy that you and I are seeing right now was very, very clearly myopically focused on single family homes. It was
Yeah.
just nutty lending. So it was a very easy 1031 exchange into multifamily because nobody was looking, right? I mean, literally, I bought a 5 unit building that produced 3x the income for 40 grand less than I sold that house, right? I mean, that's how crazy
Wow.
it was, right? So that was an easy time. Today, I am selling as well, like you, but it's not as easy to exchange because it's not a no-brainer decision like it was in '08. So what are you considering when you're like, okay, I'm going to sell? We'll just pick on the 4 unit building. You have to be ready to just eat the capital gains tax potentially, right?
You do. And one of the things that I've considered, so I just decided, Michael, really kind of on a whim, but I had been really looking at my numbers. Like I do look at my numbers every month, but then every year I really
Mm.
very carefully evaluate every single property and say, where am I? So it's a good time when you're getting ready to do your end of year accounting to say, hey, I've got to look at this stuff anyway. Let me get very clear on my numbers. And I
Mhm.
looked at what other properties were selling for. And in my area, a nice 4 unit apartment building is going to sell between 250 and 280.
Okay.
And if they're a little bit old, it might be, as low as 230. But I saw some properties get listed for like 350.
Oh,
And I thought, if these
sheesh.
things actually sell, I'm selling a bunch of them because I can make a whole lot more money
Yeah.
really quickly and then use them to buy into larger properties. The other thing that I thought about was I'd like to, over time, start consolidating some of my properties that are, separate singles, duplexes, 4 units into, 10 units, 20 units, 30 unit properties so that I'm just under fewer locations for those
Mhm.
same properties. So then the next question is, what's going to happen with my taxes? And I look to see what other properties are out there that I might be interested in that I could 1031 exchange into. And within about an hour and a half of my home, which I like to stay fairly local for stuff that I'm going to own by myself,
Hmm.
it's different than stuff that you're syndicating or you have partners on. I decided what's available, and there really wasn't a single property listed that I was interested in that I felt like was at the right price point.
Hmm.
So then the very real question becomes, how many of these am I willing to sell if I have to take the capital gain hit? And then what is it going to do for me, and how is it going to position me in the future to be able to buy stuff when we have a downturn? And right now, capital gains are lower than I think they've been in history. They're
Hmm.
definitely lower than they have been in many, many years. So,
Yes.
right now, under the current tax plans, the capital gains for long term capital gains are 15 and 20%, depending on what tax bracket you're in. And
Yep.
so, for me, even if I have to take a 15% tax, it's much lower than my tax rate on anything else that I own, or
That's a
your
good
tax
point.
rate on your income. And
Yeah.
so it's still a very low tax that eventually you're going to have to pay.
Yeah.
And if I can cash out $150,000 and I have to pay, 20 grand on it or whatever the number is exactly, I'm going to pay the money. I'm going to sit on
Yeah.
$100,000 plus. And then when the right opportunity comes, I'm going to buy it. And maybe that one I'll be able to 1031. So
Yeah.
the 1031 exchange, the difficulty is you're limited to only 45 days from the day you sell that property to identify another property. And if you're at the top and there aren't other properties you like, once you pass that 45 days, then you're stuck. And
Hmm.
so you got to pay the capital gain anyway. So if I don't know that there's a property I'm interested by the time I'm settling,
Hmm.
I don't want to have to pay a 1031 exchange agent that's going to cost a couple $1,000s
Yep.
and then hope that I can find something else in another 45 days. So you just have to kind of, in the evaluation of whether you want to sell, realistically look at what will I net after all expenses, what
Hmm.
might I have to pay in taxes, and then is it still worth it to sell?
Yeah.
And I looked at, basically I thought I'd like to have a couple $100,000 liquid
Yep.
before we head into a downturn. And so I looked at which properties am I going to have the most equity in, and I identified 5 properties that I was willing to sell, thinking I would sell 2 or 3 of them
Yep.
and then keep the others. So I just kind of put out to my Facebook network, hey, I'm thinking about selling some properties. And I mean, within a week, I had a whole lot of people that wanted to see my properties. Because the good thing is, right now, there's not a lot listed
Yeah.
that stays listed for very long. So people are dying to get into these properties, and I've got what people want. And so I had offers on 3 of them pretty quickly, and I decided to take one out of the list because I really liked the property, and I only kind of threw it out there just to say, well, if this one sold before the other one, then I'd sell it first.
Yeah.
And I decided to keep one of them. And then the other property, I am kind of like, I could take it or leave it. So it's a good position to be in to
Hmm.
not have to sell, but be willing to sell if the right number comes along.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I hadn't thought about the tax efficiency. You're absolutely right. If you have to pay a 15%, income tax hit or capital gains tax, that's more efficient than ordinary income and all of that. That's very well said. And I
Yeah.
miss that. And what we're doing, yeah, is we sold 2 of our larger apartment build, and larger for us is 18 units. Let's be clear. It's not hundreds, right? That's big for us.
But it's still a nice size.
Yeah, it's ours, right? It's
Yeah.
we're not with JVs or
Hmm.
syndications or anything. So, um, and we sold them pretty much for the same reasons. People wanted them. They were, and one of them needed 200K in immediate investment, right? That needed the new roof,
Yeah.
and it was just, yeah. Anyways, so they sold, and one of them we did a 1031 exchange into an owner finance deal. We actually found an owner that was looking to sell his entire portfolio. So
Wow.
we did a 1031 exchange into that one. And then the other one, we wanted to increase our cash position. It's amazing how similar our stories are on
Yeah.
different coasts, right? I have
Yeah.
more cash now than I've ever had.
Me
And
too.
and it will probably double before the summer, before, June or July of 20, because
Yeah.
I want to have a decent pile for what I think is going to be a great buying opportunity in 2022 when some of these multifamilies retrade again because they're not performing. So,
Yeah, and I think 2 things that I thought of as you were talking, and one of those is I really kind of struggled especially with my background, always thinking about having your money moving.
Yeah.
I kind of struggled sitting on some of this cash. Like I never held a whole lot of reserves because I
Yeah.
knew that I could get liquid and I had lots of lines of credits and things I needed for an emergency. But I'm like, I don't want my money sitting there making no interest and
Yeah.
inflation kind of, hitting it.
Eating
But
it.
the
Yeah.
reality is there's safety in having some cash. And
Hmm.
when you are heading toward a downturn and you might not be able to get banks to lend as quickly if they're in a downturn, you're going to need more cash and the banks are going to want you to have more reserves. And so again, it's kind of that opportunity cost. So maybe I'm losing a couple percentage points on that money for a while, but the opportunity cost that that the opportunity that it provides me by having that cash and the safety by having that cash, can really be a good thing as long as we have plans for that,
Yeah.
in the future. So that was one thing. And then the other thing about tax efficiency that I think is really powerful right now, just given this current tax code, we've talked a little bit about the bonus depreciation,
Hmm.
but my strategy that really went well in 2018 when I sold a single that I flipped and I sold a 3-unit building, I had about $100,000 liability, and I knew I was going to have to pay, or that was my gain. So I knew I was going to have to pay, you know, a couple, maybe $20,000, $30,000. I don't remember the exact number in taxes and capital gains. But because I bought an apartment building that I could cost segregate and
Hmm.
bonus depreciate, that bonus depreciation completely offset my capital gain. So
Awesome.
the same thoughts for me when I'm selling is I might have to pay the 15%. But if I'm smart this year and I buy anything else this year that I could bonus depreciate, I can
Yep.
very easily completely wipe out that 15% by offsetting it with the bonus depreciation from other investments. So that's a really powerful tool to us that really can motivate us to go ahead and make that sell if it's in our best interest,
Hmm.
regardless of that capital gains hit when a 1031 is not available to you. And in some ways, it's better than a 1031 because it allows you to have that cash
Oh yeah.
liquidity and find a way to not have to pay the taxes on it legally.
I totally agree, and that's one of the reasons why we 1031 into a decent sized portfolio and sold the other one because I knew I could at least most of it would be hidden from from capital gains. So that's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. And I
And
want
a
to go
lot
back.
of people don't know about this bonus depreciation. So I see people making silly decisions on what to 1031 into just because they're so afraid to pay that
Uh,
tax. And they don't understand that they're making a poor investment decision for a tax purpose. You should only make wise investment decisions to help with the tax problem, not buy something that you really don't want and sell something that was otherwise a good asset. So you've really got to be, educated on what your different strategies are from a taxation standpoint
yeah,
and let that be a component of your decision, but not the main reason for a decision that you purchase.
absolutely, absolutely. The other thing I want to go back to is the notion of cash because, like earning 1.5% in some savings or money market account is not what I expect for my money, let's just say. However, again, I experienced the last downturn and where it started in single family homes, and that's what everybody talks about today. We bought about roughly 50 units, 3 different small apartment buildings for nothing down because we
Wow.
had the cash. They were in distressed state. So people will lose multifamily, right? We bought 3
Yes.
buildings directly from banks. Now they were local Fresno community banks, but nonetheless, and in one of the cases, the president of the bank tapped me on my shoulder when I was at the property next door and says, "Would you take mine?" I'm like, "Who
Oh,
are
wow.
you?" I'm like, "Who are you?" Blah blah blah. But again, he essentially gave us the loan, gave us a reduced rate. All he wanted was like 20 grand escrowed, and we picked up another building just like that. And that's what I'm getting ready for. Is it going to happen in 2020? No, we are still in the frenzy state, which we're going to talk about next. Will it happen in 21? Probably not. Will it start seeing cracks in 22? That's that's where I think it's going to start to happen. So
Mm.
that's what I'm being prepared for because I did it by accident last time. I'm going to do it
Yes,
intentionally this time. Uh,
absolutely.
and
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So let's talk about this frenzy because I am sensing the last 3 or 4 months a different vibration at real estate events on this channel. I mean, it is starting to just vibrate at a different level where people are almost making irrational decisions and just
Yeah.
they're coming in so late and in
Yeah.
such great numbers. It's like, oh, I'm going to jump to the sidelines. I'm going to go over here. You all go enjoy that view of that cliff and just keep running. Because I mean, that's what I'm seeing out here. I don't know about on the East Coast.
Yeah, I am. And, it's really why I've posted so much recently on my Facebook about trying to get people to slow down,
Mm,
stop trying to keep up and compete with everything that you're seeing on social media.
yeah,
And all of these people who say they're doing all these great things who may or may not be, some of them have been in the business a really long time. And that's why they're able to utilize their resource and their skills and their experience and their partners to still find good deals. But
true.
I see a lot of deals come to me, both people asking me to help co-sponsor deals and help them to operate these deals, and people sending me deals to invest in as a passive. And really probably 80 to 90% of them, I say these people are going to lose their shirts, and I
Yeah.
feel so badly for what I see going to happen,
Hmm.
that I want to encourage people to take a step back. Don't get emotionally tied up in the I have to do this right now.
Yes.
Real estate has been generating wealth for people for hundreds of years, and it will continue to generate wealth for people for hundreds of years. But we have to be able to step back, look at the numbers, understand market cycles, understand where we are, and
Hmm.
not pull the trigger just to get a deal done.
Hmm.
It's one of the reasons I hate to see my goal is to buy X number of
Oh,
units this year.
yes.
Unit count is not what matters. You should be looking at your finances and say, my
Yes.
goal is I need to replace $1,000 a month in income.
Yes.
What opportunities are out there today that I can find that will move me toward that $1,000 a month? If
Yes.
it's single, if it's a small multi, I like multis better than singles for a lot of reasons, but in some areas you don't have them.
Hmm.
um, Whatever that might be, have the mindset of what is my financial goal, go look for opportunities that can meet it, and sit tight and be patient, and don't compromise what your criteria is
Hmm.
just because you think everybody else is doing so many more things, because many of them are doing very bad deals that are going to hurt them.
I couldn't have said it any better. I agree with all of that 1,000%. Do the math. Don't chase others. Some people sure are finding the unicorns with four-leaf clovers in their mouth. They're out there.
Yeah.
But
And I have,
yeah,
some of my success people are like, oh, you're crushing it. And I'm like, it's not that I don't want to take credit to say, I need to recognize that there's some good things that I've done that I'm very thankful for and proud
yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah.
But some of my success really has been years and years and years and years and years of putting in the work, so that now off market stuff is coming to me that I'm like, how in the world did this happen to me?
Yeah,
I'm so lucky. But really, it's that building and that long term, what you're
yeah,
building that creates the momentum so that unicorns do come to you.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you should go out chasing them and trying to create a unicorn out of a bulldog.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's just put it this way. In today's frenzied market, there's nothing that's on the market for
Right.
more than 8 hours. That's a unicorn. They're
Yeah.
they're they're probably mules with a broomstick, glued to their head.
I like that better than the bulldog.
Yeah, yeah, just the right imagery.
Yes.
But you're right. Unicorns holding four-leaf clovers do happen, and my 1031 exchange this year into that portfolio is one.
Yeah.
Without getting into specifics, he gave me roughly $500,000 in equity. He gave me a 20-year loan, fully amortized for the full term at a reduced
Wow.
rate. All he wanted was his payments. I have a significant prepayment penalty for 5 years, so I won't sell him, which I don't want to, but he needed that for security.
Yeah.
And we both won, but it was off market. It was a relationship I had a year ago when I bought one of
Yes.
his houses. And he's like, hey, I want to sell everything else. And you're the only guy that I know that can perform. I'm like, great. Let me sell this
Yeah.
apartment over here, right? Wait
Yeah.
90 days. Let me sell this. I'll open a 1031 exchange.
Yeah.
I'll come in and everything's done.
Yeah,
But you're
and
right.
that happened because you're playing the long game. You've been in it
Exactly.
long enough that if you were to try to get that deal as a newbie, you'd
Oh,
probably mess it up and nobody would trust you to give it to you. But
no.
because you have
Yeah.
that track record and that experience, and they can see that you have some wisdom in the way you're trying to structure it, they're
Yeah.
coming to you. But
Yeah.
if people are just looking and going, oh, Michael's one of these people that everything's happening, I must
Oh,
not be doing enough. I got to start taking more risk to get
yeah.
these deals. That's when it becomes, comparison really can cause you to make some pretty poor decisions. So we
Oh,
just have to be careful and play the long game.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to talk about is uh, in today's market, right? Unlike '08, today's market, the frenzy is in multifamily. I mean, it
Yeah.
is vibrating at a level I have never seen. So if you're
Hmm.
just starting out, there is nothing wrong with buying a fixed rate 30-year mortgage with a 3% on it in a single family home. One rental at a time can start with houses. It is okay, right? You're not going to be somehow banished to, landlord island because you only have houses. That is better today, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it just depends. I mean, I agree with you. For some people, it is.
Yep.
I think that there's this idea floating out there, and some people in multifamily will say, if you're doing singles, you're wasting your time, or you need to play with the
Yeah.
big boys and you need to play with the big dogs. There's lots of people that get very wealthy buying single family homes,
Oh,
and
yeah.
for the right investor, single family may be what's better for you. Some investors need a more an asset that's going to appreciate slowly over time that they can hold for cash. They just
Mhm.
want the net income, and they really want appreciation and preserving value. And they
Mhm.
don't care as much about income, that you can generate more income with the multi units. But there's sometimes more risk that comes in that. And depending on how much money you have available to you from whatever sources that may be, I'd say it's better to buy yourself a single family home than wait for a year looking for a big multi and take
Yeah.
2 to 3% of it and still not make very much money, when you could have kept that momentum going by buying yourself,
Mhm.
a rental property, even if that's a single. So, wherever the opportunity is in your market, in your area, that matches that goal, go for it. It doesn't have to be, a multi or a big multi or a single. You just have to look at your personal goals and
Yep.
see if that particular property can meet what your goals are today.
Yeah. The last question kind of on this topic I'd be interested in here is, so we're both raising cash today. I've told you when I expect to disperse that kind of 22 probably. Have you thought about how long you may have to sit on this 1.5% kind of earning in a savings account? Because I know it's uncomfortable, but have you thought about kind of how long that opportunity might be out there, or how long you might hold it?
I have, and I've actually invested in a fund, a note fund,
Okay.
or I'm about to invest in this note fund. I've had it sitting there, but I was waiting until this year to kind of pull the trigger. But
Uh-huh.
there are some funds that are really good funds that are managed by very experienced companies who have a track record of in up times and down times doing well. Where you can lock your money up, for as short as 3 months, 6 months, or a year, and still make between 4 and 8%.
Ah,
And so I am putting some of my money into a one of these note funds,
okay.
and looking at just holding my money there where I can get out. So a certain portion I'm going to lock up for a year, and I'll make 8% on my money for a year.
There you
And
go.
so I feel like that's pretty darn good compared to having it sit in a bank.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wouldn't want all of my money locked up in it, because I might find something in 6 months that I want to invest in. So
Yep.
I'm going to have a portion in a fund that's like 180 days,
Okay.
or 90 days, that allows me enough flexibility to say, hey, I found something. Let me make it under contract for 90 days out. Then I can get my money out and still make 3% on that money.
There
So,
you go.
so there are some fund options that you can look into. You just want to be really careful with your selection to make sure that it's a very low risk, for the return that you might make.
Well, I'm gonna have to look up those funds because yeah, I've never looked at that. I'm so uncomfortable having cash. This is a very new experience for me, so I have to figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
good.
message me later and I'll give you the name of the fund. I don't want to say it publicly just because I don't want anything to look as I'm endorsing this
Uh,
for everyone, because everybody has a different, investor objectives and
exactly.
liquidity and risk and all this kind of stuff. But there are some that I'm very comfortable with, and that my financial advisor looked at with me and said, yes, I think this is a pretty safe bet for at least
Cool.
some of the money.
I will
Yeah.
do that, and I agree with you. Yeah, let's not put that out on. Let's not get that recorded for everyone. But because yeah, I don't want to be seen as endorsing anything either. Everybody, look out for yourself. So Anna, this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad we talked about this topic. There are some times you should sell, and
Yeah.
I think we're both in a position where, you know what, a couple of our assets are going to go. and we're going to raise capital for the next buying cycle, which I think is going to be outstanding for both of us.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
All right.
awesome. Well, this is fun as always, and I look forward to talking to you in a couple weeks when you're back.
You got it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.